The Frontier Dawn shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, its hull groaning in protest against the gravitational pull of Zereth Prime. Captain Rhea Vandrel tightened her grip on the armrest of her command chair, her eyes scanning the turbulent atmosphere on the view screen. Waves of acidic storms churned through the skies, their electric pulses illuminating the jagged terrain below. "Status report," Rhea ordered, her voice steady but laced with urgency. Lieutenant Adrian Cho, her second-in-command, glanced up from his console. "Atmospheric interference is worse than expected. Radiation spikes across all spectrums. Landing won't be smooth." Rhea nodded, her mind already racing through contingency plans. "Prepare the landing craft. We'll adapt." She turned to the crew, their faces tense with apprehension. This was humanity's first attempt to claim a Deathworld, a planet so hostile even the galaxy's most advanced species avoided it. Failure wasn't an option. "Listen up," Rhea said, rising to address them. "Zereth Prime isn't going to welcome us with open arms. But we're not here to make friends. We're here to survive, adapt, and prove to the galaxy that humanity belongs among the stars. Let's show them what we're made of." The crew responded with a collective nod, a flicker of determination replacing their doubt. The landing craft descended into chaos. Rhea braced herself as turbulence slammed them like a giant's fist. Acidic rain streaked the viewport, sizzling against the craft's reinforced exterior. Outside, towering spires of black rock jutted into the sky like jagged teeth. "Brace for impact!" Cho shouted, his hands darting over the controls. The craft hit the ground with a bone-jarring thud. Alarms blared as a razor-winged predator slammed into the hull, its talons screeching against the metal. The crew scrambled to secure their gear while Rhea grabbed her sidearm and barked orders. "Deploy the exhaust vents! Overheat them if you have to!" Cho activated the vents, releasing a burst of scalding air that sent the predator screeching into the storm. The crew let out a collective sigh of relief, but Rhea's focus remained sharp. "Damage report," she demanded. "Minimal," Cho replied. "Landing gear strained, but we're operational." "Good. Let's move." The air outside was oppressive, thick with the acrid stench of sulfur. Every breath through the filtered masks burned slightly, a constant reminder of the planet's hostility. Rhea led the scouting team, her boots crunching on the glassy black soil. "This place is a nightmare," muttered Ensign Harper, one of the younger crew members. Rhea shot him a glance. "And we're the monsters who dared to land here. Keep moving." The team advanced cautiously, scanning the terrain with portable sensors. The landscape was alive with menace, acid pools bubbled ominously, and the occasional growl of unseen predators echoed through the air. They found the first signs of the Kethri less than a mile from the landing site, a ruined outpost, its twisted metal and shattered defenses speaking to a battle long past. Cho knelt by a piece of wreckage, brushing away ash. "Looks like a Kethri structure. But something destroyed it." Rhea frowned. The Kethri were known for their brutality and resilience. Whatever had taken out this outpost was powerful, and still out there. "Stay alert," she said, her voice low. "We're not alone." As the team returned to base camp, the comms crackled with interference. Then, a voice broke through, guttural and dripping with contempt. "Human vessel," it growled. "You trespass on Zereth Prime, the domain of the Kethri Dominion. Leave now, or be destroyed." The voice was unmistakable. Warlord Threxcoron, the Kethri's most feared commander. Rhea's jaw tightened. She stepped forward, activating her transmitter. "This is Captain Rhea Vandrel of the Frontier Dawn. We have no intention of leaving. Your threats won't scare us off." A harsh, guttural laugh echoed through the comms. "Foolish human. Zereth Prime will break you. Turn back, or I will grind your bones into the soil." The transmission cut abruptly, leaving an uneasy silence. Harper looked at Rhea, his face pale. "Do you think they'll attack us?" Rhea's expression hardened. "Count on it. But we're not going anywhere." Night fell quickly on Zereth Prime, plunging the camp into darkness. The crew worked tirelessly to fortify their position, setting up energy shields and deploying automated turrets. Rhea moved among them, offering instructions and encouragement. "Captain," Cho said, approaching her. "Sensors picked up movement to the east. Could be Kethari scouts." "Double the patrols," Rhea said. "We can't afford any surprises." Hours later, the first attack came. A piercing shriek shattered the night as a Kethari drone swooped into the camp, its metallic wings reflecting the faint glow of the energy shields. Automated turrets fired, but the drone was fast, dodging their attacks with ease. Rhea grabbed her rifle and took aim, her breath steady despite the chaos. She waited for the drone to circle back, then fired a precise shot that pierced its core. The drone exploded in a shower of sparks, lighting up the night like a dying star. "Stay sharp," Rhea shouted, scanning the perimeter. "That was just a probe." Her words proved true moments later when a squad of Kethari warriors emerged from the shadows, their towering forms illuminated by the faint glow of the shields. They moved with predatory grace, their weapons crackling with energy. "Engage!" Rhea commanded. The camp erupted into chaos as humans and Kethari clashed. The Kethari were stronger and faster, but the humans fought with grit and ingenuity. Rhea led the charge, her rifle cutting down 2 warriors before she ducked behind cover. Cho joined her, firing bursts from his pistol. "They're testing us," he said. "Let them," Rhea replied. "We'll pass." The battle raged until the Kethari retreated into the night, leaving behind their dead. The humans had survived, but the cost was evident in the wounded and the tension etched on every face. As dawn broke over the alien horizon, Rhea stood at the edge of the camp, her gaze fixed on the unforgiving terrain. The scars of the battle were everywhere, but so was the determination in her crew. "We held the line," Cho said, joining her. "For now," Rhea replied. "But this was just the beginning. They'll be back. And so will we," Cho said with a faint smile. Rhea nodded, her resolve unshaken. Zereth Prime was a death world, but humanity had faced worse. They had come to survive, and they would. "We've got work to do," she said, turning back to the camp. And with that, the humans began preparing for the next battle, their spirits tempered by fire and steel. The camp buzzed with grim determination as the humans worked to recover from the night's assault. Acrid smoke hung in the air, mixing with the ever-present sulfuric stench of Zereth Prime. The makeshift fortifications, though battered, had held. Captain Rhea Vandrel strode through the camp, her boots crunching against charred soil. The air was tense, heavy with unspoken fears. She stopped by a young engineer, Kelly Rains, who was welding a damaged energy shield emitter. "How's it looking?" Rhea asked, crouching beside her. Kelly wiped sweat from her brow, streaking her face with soot. "It's holding for now, but the power core is unstable. If they hit us again, we might not have enough juice to keep the shields up." Rhea nodded, her expression unreadable. "Do what you can. We're not giving them an opening." In the central command tent, Lieutenant Adrian Cho studied a holographic map of the surrounding terrain. The glowing grid displayed their base as a fragile blue dot in a sea of hostile red markers. "They're surrounding us," he said as Rhea joined him. "They're testing us," Rhea corrected. "Last night was a probe. Threx wants to see how far he can push before we crack." Cho looked up, his brow furrowed. "And what's our next move? We can't sit here waiting for him to tighten the noose." Rhea tapped the edge of the map. "We don't wait. We adapt. If the Kethari think we're predictable, we use that to our advantage. They expect us to dig in, so we strike first." By midday, the plan was set. A small team would venture into the nearby ravines to sabotage a Kethari scouting post identified by drones earlier that morning. It was risky, but if they could disrupt the Kethari's ability to monitor the camp, they'd gain breathing room to reinforce their defenses. Rhea handpicked the team herself, Cho, for his tactical insight, Harper, despite his nerves, for his sharp eye and steady aim, and Elena Vorik, a seasoned engineer with a knack for explosives. As they geared up, Harper fidgeted nervously. "You really think this'll work, Captain?" Rhea adjusted her rifle strap, her gaze steady. It'll work because we don't have another choice. Fear doesn't win wars, Harper. Action does. Her words steadied him, and he nodded, determination replacing doubt. The ravines were a labyrinth of jagged rock and shadow, the air thick with the hiss of acidic steam escaping from fissures in the ground. The team moved in silence, their steps careful, their senses heightened. Vorik scanned the area with a portable sensor, her expression grim. The outpost is a few hundred meters ahead, tucked into that crevice. She pointed to a narrow gap between two towering rock formations. Good, Rhea said. We get in, plant the charges, and get out before they know what hit them. As they approached, the faint hum of Ketheri equipment became audible. Harper peered through his scope and whispered, I see 2 guards patrolling the entrance. Big ones. Stay low, Rhea ordered. We take them out quietly. Cho and Harper moved into position, their rifles equipped with silencers. 2 faint pops echoed, and the guards crumpled silently to the ground. Move, Rhea whispered. Inside the outpost, the team worked quickly. Vorik placed explosive charges along the structural supports while Cho and Harper stood watch. The Ketheri had clearly underestimated the humans' audacity. The outpost's defenses were minimal. Charges set, Vorik whispered, her voice steady. Ready to blow on your command. Rhea gave a nod, but just as they turned to leave, a low growl reverberated through the cavern. A hulking Ketheri warrior stepped into view, its yellow eyes narrowing in recognition. Go! Rhea shouted. The Ketheri lunged, its energy blades slicing through the air. Harper fired, the shot grazing its shoulder, but it barely flinched. Rhea stepped in, her rifle's burst catching it in the chest. It staggered but didn't fall. Vorik grabbed Harper and pulled him toward the exit. Captain? I'm right behind you! Rhea shouted, dodging another swing. Cho fired a final shot, the bullet striking the Ketheri's exposed neck. It collapsed with a guttural snarl. Move! Rhea barked, and the team sprinted out of the outpost. The charges detonated behind them, the explosion shaking the ground and sending plumes of black smoke into the air. Back at camp, the mood was tense but hopeful. The team's successful strike had bought them time, but everyone knew it wouldn't be long before the Ketheri retaliated. As Rhea debriefed the crew, Kelly approached with a grim expression. Captain, we have a problem. Someone tampered with the oxygen filters. Rhea's brow furrowed. Sabotage? Kelly nodded. It had to be. This wasn't random damage. Rhea clenched her fists. The Ketheri had infiltrated their camp. That night, Rhea called a meeting of her senior staff. If they can sabotage our systems, they can hit us from within. I want double patrols and a full sweep of the camp. No one moves without clearance. Cho leaned forward, his expression grim. What if they're using some kind of cloaking tech? We're blind without the right countermeasures. We'll improvise, Rhea said. Rig the motion sensors to detect anomalies. If the Ketheri think they can outsmart us, they're wrong. Hours passed, the camp on high alert. The oppressive silence was broken only by the occasional hiss of acid rain against the energy shields. Then, without warning, the shields flickered. A sharp crack echoed as a Ketheri drone swooped in, its metallic wings slicing through the air. Turrets fired, but the drone evaded with precision, targeting the power core. Rhea grabbed a rifle, her movements sharp and practiced. Take it down! Harper fired, the shot grazing the drone's wing. It faltered but adjusted course. Cho fired next, his bullet shattering its core. The drone exploded, pieces raining down. Before the crew could regroup, more Ketheri warriors emerged from the shadows, their weapons glowing ominously. Defensive positions! Rhea shouted. The battle was fierce, the Ketheri pressing hard against the humans' defenses. But the crew fought with ingenuity, using makeshift traps and coordinated strikes to repel the assault. By dawn, the camp was battered but intact. The humans had survived another night, but the cost was steep. Rhea stood by the perimeter, watching the horizon. They'll keep coming, Cho said quietly, joining her. Let them, Rhea replied, her voice firm. We'll be ready. The rising sun painted the jagged landscape in hues of red and gold, a stark reminder of the world's unrelenting hostility. But Rhea's resolve remained unshaken. Humanity had come to Zereth Prime to prove they belonged, and they wouldn't back down. The air was thick with tension as the crew gathered in the command tent. Captain Rhea Vandrel stood at the head of the table, her gaze steady as she addressed her people. The latest attack had pushed them to their limits, but it had also revealed something invaluable: the Ketheri's vulnerability. "They're stronger and faster," Rhea began, her voice firm. "But they're not invincible. The outposts we destroyed crippled their ability to coordinate strikes, and last night's attack proved they're desperate. If we hit them where it hurts, we can turn this war in our favor." Lieutenant Adrian Cho nodded, his eyes locked on the holographic map. "We've identified their command nexus. It's heavily fortified, but if we can take it out, we'll cut off their reinforcements and communication." Rhea scanned the room. "This mission will be dangerous. Volunteers only. But know this, every step we take forward is a step toward survival. If we sit and wait, we're as good as dead." The room was silent for a beat before Ensign Harper stood, his face pale but resolute. "I'm in." One by one, hands went up. Preparations for the strike began immediately. Elena Vorik worked tirelessly to assemble high-yield explosives, her hands steady despite the weight of what lay ahead. Harper and Kelly Rains modified the team's armor and weapons, adding makeshift enhancements to counter the Ketheri's superior strength. "You think this will actually work?" Harper asked as he tested his rifle's reinforced scope. Rains smirked. "If it doesn't, we won't live long enough to regret it." Rhea overheard and stepped in, her tone calm but commanding. "It'll work. Because we'll make it work." The team set out under cover of darkness, their movements precise and silent. Zereth Prime's hostile terrain loomed around them, every shadow a potential threat. Acid pools glowed faintly in the distance, casting an eerie light over the jagged rocks. Vorik paused to consult her scanner, her voice low. "Nexus is less than a mile out. Guard patrols every 30 minutes. If we time it right, we can slip through." Cho glanced at Rhea. "And if we're wrong? Then we improvise," she replied, her voice unwavering. As they approached the Nexus, the first obstacle came into view, a pair of Ketheri sentries guarding the entrance. The warriors stood motionless, their sleek, armored forms blending into the jagged terrain. Harper raised his rifle, his breath steady. "I've got the one on the left." Cho nodded. "I'll take the other." Two muffled shots rang out, and the sentries crumpled to the ground. "Clear," Rhea whispered. "Move." Inside the Nexus, the air was stifling, charged with the hum of alien machinery. The walls pulsed faintly, their bioluminescent patterns casting eerie shadows. The team advanced cautiously, their senses on high alert. Vorik stopped at a central junction, pulling a small explosive charge from her pack. "This should do it. One charge here, and their power grid goes down." "Make it fast," Rhea said, her eyes scanning the corridor. As Vorik worked, a low growl echoed through the halls. The team froze. "Contact," Cho whispered, pointing down the corridor. A squad of Ketheri emerged, their energy blades humming with deadly intent. "Hold them off!" Rhea shouted, firing the first shot. The corridor erupted into chaos. Harper and Cho took cover, their rifles spitting precise bursts of fire. The Ketheri advanced relentlessly, their armor deflecting some of the shots, but the humans' determination didn't waver. Vorik finished setting the charge and shouted, "Done! Let's move!" The team retreated, laying down suppressing fire as they navigated the labyrinthine halls. The Ketheri pursued, their guttural roars echoing through the corridors. Rhea led the way, her mind racing. The exit was close, but the Ketheri were closing in fast. "Cho, grenade!" she ordered. He nodded, pulling a grenade from his belt and tossing it behind them. The explosion shook the walls, sending debris and Ketheri flying. "Go!" Rhea shouted, and the team sprinted for the exit. Outside, the team regrouped as Vorik detonated the charges. The ground trembled, and a deafening roar filled the air as the Nexus erupted in a fiery blast. The structure collapsed in on itself, sending plumes of smoke and debris skyward. Harper stared at the destruction, his chest heaving. "Did we get them?" Rhea scanned the horizon, her rifle still at the ready. "We'll know soon enough." The team's return to camp was met with a mix of relief and celebration. The crew gathered around as Rhea debriefed them. "We struck a blow today," she said. "The Ketheri know we're not easy prey. But this isn't over. They'll come back harder. We need to be ready." Cho stepped forward. "We've reinforced the perimeter and improved the shield capacitors. If they come, they'll find us stronger than ever." Rhea nodded, pride evident in her expression. "Good. Because we're not just surviving anymore, we're winning." Later that night, Rhea stood at the edge of the camp, gazing at the distant horizon. The battle had taken its toll, but for the first time since landing on Zereth Prime, she felt the tide turning. Cho approached, his steps careful. "You did good today, Captain." "We all did," she replied. He hesitated. "You really think we can win this?" Rhea turned to him, her gaze unwavering. "I don't think. I know. Humanity didn't get this far by running from a fight." As the two stood in silence, the stars above shimmered faintly, a stark contrast to the hostile world below. The battle for Zereth Prime was far from over, but for the humans, hope burned brighter than ever.